Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of our podcast of Narrative Navigators. My name is Madi.
And I'm Jess.
We are currently in a cafe right now, so you may hear some random background noises just naturally as exists in a cafe. But thank you for listening in to our podcast. We are going to talk about the first book that we have chosen, which is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. And the way that we're going to do the podcast is we have read the first half of the book.
And it was so hard to stop.
It was very difficult. We wanted to just continue to read. We stopped at the first half, so we read parts 1 and 2 out of the 5 total parts. And we're just going to talk about what we've read so far, kind of the setup of the book, some major themes, and then we're going to end this show today talking about some of our predictions. So there is going to be a little bit of spoilers with the episode if you haven't read the book. And then the next episode that we do, it will be over the last half of the book and kind of the book entirely. So that will be full of spoilers. And then we'll also talk about what book we're going to read next after that. So as we get going, that's kind of the setup that we're going to have for our episodes. So you are more than welcome to grab a book with us, read through it with us, and listen into our podcasts.
So the purpose of our podcast, like why we created it, is we both really love reading and just like want to help others see the joy in reading and like how we like go through a book and I don't know, experience a book in like different ways you can like view things. Like I might see things differently than you, or you might see things differently than me. And I don't know, it's just fun to like read a book with other people and see their perspectives and like all the conspiracy theories that you might have throughout the book, and like whether you were right or wrong. Like, did you pick out the plot? Were you wrong on the plot? Were you just like, you know, just have fun with it.
Yeah. I definitely love, you read significantly more than I do. And I love, you always get so excited about a book, and then you always share with me what's going on in it and what you're thinking and all the conspiracy theories that you see or that you're predicting or that you're reading online. I think with us doing this, it expands my reading horizon. Mm-hmm. And it just allows us to collaboratively discuss and just think deeper into what's going on in the book. And then also, like you said, just being able to share it with others and having like our friends involved and having other people who are just interested and want to be a part of the conversation involved. So yeah, I think that's really why we're doing this. Let's introduce our book, Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I love the cover.
I do too. I am just not a fan of the artwork inside.
Really? This is like my guilty pleasure. I keep going back to this and I'm just like, okay.
I don't know if it's just because I do art like as my job, but I hate fan art.
Interesting.
I don't know why. Like because it's not what I imagine in my head. So you're telling me what I'm supposed to see and I don't like it. Just like, okay, I really hate pronunciation guides because, let's be real, I'm going to pronunciate however I want.
True.
I'm not looking at it. I understand the point of them. I straight ignore them. I'm very guilty about that.
No, I went back and relied on this. I'm like, okay, who we got? What are we working with?
Absolutely not. I hate them.
But what's interesting is even though I go back and look at this is not how I picture any of them in my mind.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's very beautiful, but it is not something I refer to, and I wish it wasn't there.
Fair. But either way, Lore by Alexandra Bracken. Why did we choose this book as our first book?
We were just going through different books that we could do, and this was on my TBR list. And I already had a copy, so I talked her into getting it. And it just seemed really interesting because it has Greek mythology and a young adult setting and like action kind of thing. So it seemed like it had everything kind of combined into one. And it's so far proven us true on that.
Yeah. No, this has been very action-packed, very intense, I feel like, just nonstop. And you mentioned the Greek mythology aspect of it. I love Greek mythology. I am a sucker for it. I play video games that are focused around Greek mythology. I love watching the docuseries on Greek mythology. I love all of it. It was not hard to sell me on this.
I'm very indecisive, so it helps me when people just tell me what to read.
You and I are both very indecisive. We struggle with that a little bit. All right, we want to introduce the book a little bit. We want to talk more about the author, Alexandra Bracken. So this book is not that old of a book. It was written in 2021, which was just 3 years ago. And it is and it'll tell you on the book cover, it's an instant #1 New York Times bestseller. But Alexandra Bracken is from Phoenix, Arizona. And I figured this out after the fact, but she actually has Greek family. And I didn't notice it until I went back through. She actually has a dedication to her Greek family. I don't know what that says because I don't read Greek.
Same.
But I think that definitely plays a part in the way that she's telling the story. But she's a New York Times bestselling author. She's also a USA Today bestselling author, an international bestselling author. She has even had one of her books be adapted into a feature film. I looked through her personal bio, and she talks about having been born the daughter of a Star Wars collector. And so she always went to these conventions and fairs surrounding Star Wars. And her books are nothing like Star Wars, but she credits those experiences as having been the spark for her imagination and her love for reading and just that creativity part of her life. She double majored in English and history at the College of William and Mary in Virginia, and she sold her first book as a senior in college. It was Brightly Woven, and then after that she moved to New York City. She worked in children's book publishing for 6 years before she went into full-time writing, and now she's back in Arizona where she just continues to write and read and do all of the things that she loves. The one series that was adapted into a feature film, that was her most notable series, which is the Darkest Minds series. So that was turned into a movie in 2018. And then she also has a passenger series that's pretty well known. But Darkest Minds, I looked into it because I had never heard of it.
I have never heard of it. This is the first book I read by her.
Yeah. But Darkest Minds was a book that followed a 10-year-old girl who wakes up on her birthday with a mysterious change that leads to her being sent to a government rehabilitation camp. So I haven't seen it, but it's very sci-fi, mystery, thriller action. And the reviews say it has like a big level of dystopian concepts, which I can definitely see kind of correlating here with the dystopian aspect of just twisting modern day with Greek mythology.
And I feel like she's done it really well too, because most of the time when you take a fantasy book and you put it in like today's society, like this takes place in New York, my brain can't separate real life from fantasy, and it just doesn't feel like fantasy belongs in the cityscape. But I feel like she's done a really good job with that whole aspect.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I think there were some parts in the book where she talked about just how the hold of New York keeps you there and how it cares for you and how it just, once it's home, it's always home. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that was almost her describing how she felt about New York.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. So lore, this genre, this is a young adult, it's a contemporary fantasy young adult novel. I will say, going back to the fan art, I know you didn't like the fan art. In the fan art, I think she looks old.
Yes, and she's supposed to be
17. Which, now, this she looks younger. I can see, that's a 17-year-old. But even reading this book, I don't see her being 17.
No, it's a lot for a 17-year-old.
I have a really hard time wrapping my head around that concept.
Yeah.
That's almost a disconnect for me. If like there's one thing right now that I can say that I don't like about it, it's the fact that she's 17 years old.
If anything, I feel like she should be like mid-20s.
Yes. Because, I'm sorry, the very first chapter, she's in an underground illegal fight club.
Yes, and then later she's like overseas.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Okay, anyways, let's talk about the plot overview. This is going to be spoiler-free, but we would just want to give a brief synopsis of the book. So I'm going to read the back of the book. If you were just to pick this up in the library, this is what you would read. So it says, every 7 years, the Agon begins. As punishment for a past rebellion, 9 Greek gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals. They are hunted by the descendants of ancient bloodlines, all eager to kill a god and seize their divine power and immortality. Long ago, Lore Perseus fled that brutal world, turning her back on the hunt's promises of eternal glory after her family was murdered by a rival line. For years, she pushed away any thought of revenge against the man, now a god, responsible for their deaths. Yet, as the next hunt dawns over New York City, 2 participants seek her out. Castor, a childhood friend Lore believed to be dead, and Athena, one of the last of the original gods, now gravely wounded. The goddess offers an alliance against their mutual enemy and a way to leave the Agon behind forever. But Lore's decision to rejoin the hunt, binding her fate to Athena's, will come at a deadly cost, and it may not be enough to stop the rise of a new god with the power to bring humanity to its knees.
Also, I never read the back until just now. So
What?
when we started reading this, I had no idea her binding her life to Athena. That was a whole like, oh my gosh, why did you just do that moment? And now I feel weird about it because it's just clearly there on the back of the book.
It's also on the front where it says bind your fate to mine.
I don't pay attention to the outside of the book. I pay attention to the inside.
That's where we differ. I read through this multiple times because I'm like, okay, what am I going to be dissecting here?
Yeah, I very rarely read what a book is about. I just read the book. If it's recommended to me, more than likely I'm going to read it, but I don't read the backs because I don't know. I don't want to know what it's about sometimes. I just want to fall into the story. And other times I do read it.
That's one of the hardest things that I have because any other book, I read the last chapter first.
Oh, you're one of those people.
I am. I can't. My anxiety cannot. But listen, it's taking everything in me to not do that with this.
I can't. It blows my mind that people do that. 'Cause I'm like, you just ruined the whole story. Like, how could you? I have to sometimes cover the page because I will be like, and my eyes will just like try to skip ahead to see what happens. I'm like, stop. But I can't stop it, so I have to cover it up so that I can't read ahead of where I'm at.
That is hilarious. For me, it doesn't ruin the book. If I don't do it, then I spend so much time on, like, it's honestly just my anxiety. I just freak out so much. And then I can't enjoy the book because I'm just freaking out. And then I'm like rushing through. And currently, there are moments where I'm just like fast, like flash reading, and then I have to go back. So I'm like, wait, what did I just read? Like, I'm confused now, but I have to read fast to get to the end. So,
no, I like the mystery. The anxiety of the book just makes it so much better, I feel like.
Definitely plays a part.
Yeah.
Well, even TV shows, I'll read the episode description of like the entire season.
Absolutely not.
A lot of people hate me for that, but it's okay. All right. The back of the book talks about how she's going to bind her fate to Athena. And that actually happens pretty quickly into the book.
Yeah. What, chapter 2, 4, something?
One of
the
those.
first like 5 chapters.
Yeah. And even the front of her cover says bind your fate to mine. And just the mention of that is so interesting because that's such a huge factor in the book.
Yeah. I don't think if I was Laura, I don't think I would trust somebody enough to bind my fate to theirs.
Well, and I thought it was interesting because she didn't really take that long to decide.
No, and Laura seems to me like somebody who likes to be in control, and I feel like this is very much like you're not in control anymore.
Yeah, but to some extent she is, because now Athena has to keep her alive. Because the terms of binding their fates together, if one of them dies, the other one immediately is dead.
Yeah, they both die.
Yeah, so they now need each other to both survive whatever altercation comes. Maybe this is part of her lack of confidence, because she thinks, well, if I can't defeat him, like if you can't defeat him, then I certainly can.
Yeah, but then it also makes me wonder why Athena sought her out in the beginning.
I know.
Especially like, spoiler alert ahead, like the last chapter before part 2 ends, where Isom, the reveler,
Yes.
is talking to her specifically and is saying like Athena always plays like 10 moves ahead. She's always thinking like long term and all of that.
So it's like, what does she know that?
Yeah, like everybody's
we don't?
been looking for this girl for years now, like 3 years, and Athena apparently kept tabs on her, but nobody else could find lore, and then the moment the Aegon starts, she just shows up outside her house.
Is interesting.
So I'm wondering if there's like a bigger play involved with Athena and the binding of the fates.
It's interesting that you're making this prediction about Athena, because lore is from the Greek descendant line of the famous hero Perseus. And love Greek mythology, but Perseus is the legendary Greek mythological demigod hero who was a son of Zeus and slayed Medusa with the help of Hermes and Athena. Both of them went out of their way to give him some kind of weapon. Like Athena is the one, I'm pretty sure, who gave him the shield, which...
The shield is a part of this book.
Yeah. He then, after slaying Medusa, rescued a princess, Andromeda, from a sea monster known as Cetus, while he was on his way back to Seriphus after slaying Medusa, and he actually killed the sea monster with the head of Medusa and turned it to stone to save the princess. But he didn't do that. He did that with the help of both Hermes and Athena, who are both now huge, huge players in this.
Well, one for sure, but the other one...
Well, we've been left on such a cliffhanger because the very before the chapter, the prologue, Hermes is killed.
Yes.
The prologue. And I love Hermes. There's another book that I read. There's another series that I read of Greek mythology and like mixing that with modern day. And I love Hermes. He's just hilarious, the trickster god that he is. He's just so funny. And when he died, I was so sad. I was like, wait, the book hasn't started yet.
Yes. But then my theory is because it talks about at the end that like the Reveler is talking to Lore about Hermes, because the Reveler and Hermes are lovers.
Yes.
And he made a decision that Hermes wasn't happy about. So he hasn't seen him in a couple years. And he goes with, well, you've been with, like, you've seen him. You've been with him the last, like, 3 years. And you know what she's been doing the last 3 years? Taking care of this old guy. So then I want to know, was Gil Hermes?
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let's get into the setting. We've talked a little bit about it already, but the book is taking place in New York City. So the book is set in a world where every 7 years, the 9 Greek gods must become mortal and be hunted by human descendants. Now, if a Greek god was killed by one of the hunters, then that hunter takes their place, gains their powers,
and
kind of
what is known as a new god.
Yes. And so they're still a part of this. So even though they're not one of the originals, they still get sent down as well every 7 years, become mortal, and then are hunted by human descendants. So this Agon can take place in various locations. They talked about how it's wherever the navel of the universe is, and that can move. So people will get together, decide where it's going to be, and then move it. And so it just so happens that this current Agon is taking place in New York City, where Lore is currently living.
And she has been trying to avoid anybody connected to any bloodline for the past however many years, basically since her parents were murdered.
Very coincidental. Some of the main themes that we'll hit on as we talk through this book: revenge and justice, struggling with identity and heritage, definitely power and corruption for sure, survival and sacrifice, and trauma and healing. How would you describe the tone or like the mood? I had a hard time putting that into words.
I feel like I did too. It's kind of like go, go, go from the beginning. So for me, it almost feels like what's going to happen next kind of tone, along with like a little bit of like a dreary, oh my gosh, what else can happen to this girl? Because basically her whole life has been terrible.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like a light and fluffy book, but it's also not like I'm going to be depressed reading this book kind of thing. It's like I feel like it's like an in-between. Yeah. Like you want a happy ending for her, but she has to go through all this stuff to get there.
Yes, I agree. All right, we're going to get into the discussion of the book now at this point in the podcast. This is not intended to be a spoiler for the book, but, you know, we're talking about the book.
But things happen. They might come up.
So just a forewarning.
You can't stop me.
Spoiler alert with Jess. All right. The first question I have, I just want to talk generally about the book first. So we're currently halfway. How is your experience so far? Were you immediately engaged? Did you feel like it took a little bit to get into it? And how have your emotions been while you've been reading it?
For me, I mean, my experience so far has been good. I feel like I was pretty much engaged at the beginning. I think the prologue was a little bit difficult for me to get through, only because it felt like there was so much information and so much happening that like it hadn't been explained like yet, like what was going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, things happened in the prologue that you're just like, oh, well, I need to find out now. But also like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
So then it just took a minute, and it was
just
like
left
a little
so many questions.
Yeah, more questions than answers, which obviously that's what a book is supposed to do.
Yeah.
So great job, Alexandra. But it was just like very, at least for me, like just confusing to start with because I didn't know why this was happening.
Yeah.
You know, if they would have explained like this is what happens every 7 years or something, and then like boom.
Well, I will say, I think that's part of where the back end of the book comes into play, where you're reading the back end. It's like the brief synopsis of like, this is what the book's about.
Okay.
Heads up.
Not everybody reads the back of books.
I do definitely think it took me by surprise just because of how like instantaneously you were thrown into the situation, which now we know a lot of the answers to what was going on that night of what that prologue was about. But it did immediately engage me. And then I was frustrated where the first chapter, nothing to do with it.
Yes.
Nothing
That's
to
what
do
I
with it.
mean. Ugh.
We were all of a sudden with a brand new character in a fight club.
But then the last chapter or something, or the chapter before, one of the last chapters before part 2, when it was the second flashback, it talks about the kid's son. And I went back through and read, and you know who's in the prologue? The guy's son. His name is in there. From the flashback. Bellin.
What?
He's in the prologue.
I didn't pick up on that.
I was like, why does this name sound familiar? Because it's a flashback, so it's the first time we should be reading it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is too weird of a name that I should know. So I went back through and read the prologue, and Bellin is in the prologue.
Wait. Okay. Brief.
He says, like, yes, my lord, or...
There he is.
Yeah.
Bellin lifted his mask and lowered his gaze respectfully.
Because, not gonna lie, for a while I thought that the one guy was Bellin after reading the flashback until I went back and looked at that.
Oh. Yeah, and it's interesting. I didn't even pick up on it, but Bellin is the only name
That is said in the prologue.
that's said.
Outside of Wrath.
Yeah. Okay. How would you describe our main character, Lore? Why is she doing the things that she's doing? What is going on in her mind that's driving her decisions?
Unresolved trauma.
End of story. All done. End of podcast. That's it.
I don't even know. Like, obviously, she's lived through this whole traumatic event, and like, we don't even know why her family was murdered, other than like, we know she was the one that discovered them, and it doesn't really give you like a lot of details about what happened to them. Don't know if it's going to or not, but
Well, there was one flashback that Castor had to like pull her out of, where she was literally visualizing her younger sisters with their eyes gone.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God.
So, and since that moment, she has basically been running from everything, from her feelings, from this Aegon. Like, she wants nothing to be a part of it. She got out. Weirdly, a lot of them, I feel like, want to get out of this thing. Like, they don't like it. And then there's others who, like, very much struggle with, I want more power. So I just feel like, I don't know, she's running from her problems instead of, like, facing them head on. Because even, like, when things got hard in the city, she always wanted to, like, move forward and move to a different city for a brand new start, for then just the cycle to repeat itself.
Yeah. So she's very, very trauma driven. She's very conflicted. I also view her as being very lonely.
Yeah, and very much a control freak.
Yes.
Which is not bad, because I think we all are a little bit
To
inside.
some degree, yes, for sure. But she's very compassionate and caring, and it makes me feel for her even more. Because she always wants to take care of other people, which is why it's kind of how she got into the caretaker position for the old man Gil, who she's been caring for the last 3 years, who recently died. And that has had a huge toll on her as well.
Oh, more unresolved trauma.
Yeah. But we don't know how he died.
No, we just know he was older. And, like, she met him when she was overseas because she ran from her problems. And he had, like, gotten mugged and broken his leg and his arm. So she, like, carried him to the hospital, took care, like, kind of sat with him because she, like, didn't want him to be alone through all of that, which, I mean, who would? And then basically kind of convinced him to let her, like, come take care of him. And it was only supposed to be for, like, a 3-month stint.
Yeah.
But then he broke down all her walls.
Yeah.
And wiggled his way into her heart.
Yeah, literally.
And...
Which, now that I'm thinking about it, I said that we don't know how Gil died. Was there a part in the book that talked about someone getting ran over by a car? Did he get hit by a car?
Oh, yeah, he did. He got hit by a car. Yes.
Why did we forget that?
I don't know. Because in my head, he broke his leg and broke his arm, so then he was just sick.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with being sick. But because she was his caretaker, I think what throws me off is, like, she was his caretaker. And since he was old, I feel like it was, like, kind of like our hospice care now, where it's, like, end of life care.
Yeah.
Where there's a live-in caretaker and everything. So my brain just went to that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it says he, like, got hit crossing the street by a car.
Yeah.
Of all things.
Yeah. Interesting.
More to think about, because that's very interesting. Like,
that's interesting. God. Okay, we'll get to our predictions. We will get to our predictions. All right, the opening chapter, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. Not the prologue, but like the actual first chapter. How does that set the tone for the rest of the story? And how does Alexandra Bracken establish the world and establish the stakes that are in place and what the atmosphere is like?
I think she does actually a really good job, because it's not a ton of world building at the beginning. You kind of get it, like, throughout.
It's like sprinkled in.
Yeah. She gives you enough that you understand you're in New York. You understand, like, you're in all these places and everything. And then as, like, it goes on, she gives you more, like, little nuggets of, like, detail and everything. But, I mean, I feel like the first chapter it ended on a big cliffhanger. So then you're like, okay, well, now I have to reach the next chapter. I can't just stop. I feel like almost every chapter has kind of been that way, where it just, like, it keeps you wanting to, like, read more and more and more and, like, figure it out, because there's all these, like, other side mysteries inside. You know, her dream that she has, like, how does that play in? Why was her family murdered? She doesn't tell you any of these, but then she gives you clues like, oh, she did this, or like, this guy was humiliated, so this happened. But you're like, okay, but how did that happen? Please tell me.
Well, and this is part of, like, I feel like I have to read, like, super speed just to get through, because I just have to know what's going on. And I feel like with all the stakes that the author's building and, like, the intensity that the author's putting into the story, I'm feeling that. And I'm like, okay, there was the part, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, where she is finally in Castor's room and all that,
Oh my gosh.
all that goes down.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They stand there talking for forever. I'm like, girl, we gotta go. Like, you gotta go. Why are we still waiting?
Right.
Why are we waiting for you to be completely surrounded to move your body? And
Right.
part of that was Castor's fault, but
also part of it was her contemplating, like, should she leave him or bring him into this? Like, make a decision. Like, granted, if I was in that same spot, I probably would do the same
after
thing.
we talked about how indecisive we both are. Oh man. But yes, I feel like I have to read so fast. And I had to reread that part too when they escaped, because I'm like, I was reading it so fast.
I still don't understand how they escaped. Like, in my head, he jumped from the window and grabbed a rope at the end.
He did.
Like, but when I was first reading, I was like, oh, he can fly, or he can, like, apparate like Harry Potter or something. Like,
It definitely confused me, and I think it was because I read it too fast, because I was too, like, we gotta go.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Okay, we talked about what some of the main conflicts are already that are introduced. So we talked about, I mean, it opens up with Lore fighting, and it introduces the concept of the hunters, which she's well aware of. And then very quickly we're introduced to Athena, who is a bundle of conflicts within that of herself.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Castor and his bloodline in all of those conflicts. We're introduced to Wrath, the new god, who's responsible for the death of her family, killing of other gods, destroying the other bloodlines. Like, he is just this horrible
Which is
person.
not supposed to happen. Like, gods aren't supposed to kill other gods.
Right.
Because then the
If
power,
someone-
like,
it just goes away.
disappears.
So once you've killed a god, you get their power and their power only. If you are a god and you kill someone else who is a god, you can't get those powers for yourself. Someone tried that way long ago. They learned that and they're like, okay, obviously can't do that because we want to have as much power in the game as possible.
And you're also outside of the Aegon, so like the 7 days that it is are not supposed to kill other bloodlines, which is why the murder of Lore's family is also like a big issue because it fell
happened
outside of those days.
It happened the day after the Aegon ended, so
Ended.
they should have been protected.
Yeah, they should have fallen in the window of protection and they didn't. And then there's supposed to be all these consequences about it, but nothing has happened.
Right, yeah. This bloodline thinks that they are like above the law of everybody.
The Comedes.
The Comedes, yeah. And they're so frustrating. They make me angry.
Oh my gosh, yes. But then you also find like the big main conflict of the book is, so the book opens up with a poem and it's basically kind of how like Zeus brought about this like Aegon because
It was like Zeus's decree.
Yeah, because his sons and daughters were being stupid and just wanted more power and were basically like killing humans and all of this to like get the power. So they're under the impression that there's another part of the poem that shows how to complete the Aegon. Because while some people really like it, there are some gods, especially some of the old gods who have been around for, hundreds of these like Aegons that are like tired of them. They don't want to be a part of them. Like, because could you imagine like living your life? You're immortal except for 7 days every 7 years where everybody and their mother is trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And you're used to having like all this power and then you're trapped in a mortal body.
Uh-huh.
But so the big conflict is like them trying to figure out what this other half of the poem is. Is it a real thing? Is that what Wrath is after? Because it's supposed to be how to end the Aegon. And like right now their assumption is like to end it like you take everybody's power. So you'll be like the most like powerful being ever, like basically like rivaling Zeus. So they're trying to figure out how to stop Wrath basically from becoming this person.
And with a mention of this poem over and over and over, I keep going back to it and rereading it because part of it says that this hunt shall be until that final day when one remains who is remade whole. So I'm going to pocket that. And we're going to save that for our predictions at the end. We've kind of mentioned the flashbacks already. How is the author using flashbacks or references to past events to help build the narrative and give us a better understanding of Lore and her compatriots?
Well, it kind of gives you like a snippet of like how she grew up. So she's a fighter because obviously in the first chapter she's in all these fights. But you're like, okay, but like how did she become a fighter? Because she's really good.
Yeah.
And then so the first flashback you kind of learn about how she trained. So she got into like the Achilles training academy,
Which is a totally separate bloodline.
so it's kind of weird. But then her dad made a pact with the Achilles to get her to train, or like a trade basically.
Yeah.
But you don't know what it is. So you just know it happened. So you're like, "Ugh, it's one more thing I have to find out now."
Well, we did find out what it was eventually. He gave up some information,
But I also want to know why they wanted to know, and I haven't found that out yet.
well, at that time, they didn't have a god. They didn't have anyone who was ascended into being a new god. So they were probably
Because
just
they just
trying
had
to...
Apollo. Because they're Apollo's bloodline.
They're not Apollo's bloodline. Apollo's a god.
Yeah, but because Castor becomes their
Because
new
he killed
god.
Apollo.
So Apollo is still their god, though, with the Achilles.
No.
So this is why I need more information.
So the 9 gods, Apollo was one of them.
Yes.
And up until like
And
7
they all
years...
have their own bloodline.
The bloodlines are heroes, not gods. The bloodlines, like the Achilles bloodline, comes from the hero Achilles. They are descendants
Yeah, I didn't read that page.
of Achilles. And like the house of Theseus, they're the descendants of Theseus. Descendants of Odysseus. Descendants of Cadmus. Descendants of Perseus. These are all famous heroes who did something significant in Greek mythology.
So maybe you should read the first 2 pages and not skip them like I did.
So you can kill whatever god you want and get their power.
Yeah.
So at that time, they didn't kill a god.
Gotcha.
And so they wanted information
I'm tracking now.
on another god to get their power. And then he just ended up being able to kill Apollo. Somehow, nobody knows how.
And then the second flashback, you learn a bit more about the Chimedes and the reason why, not really the reason why Lore's family was murdered, but like some of the backstory about how it's, I feel like it's some
Kinda
of the
what
backstory.
initiated it.
What initiated this whole process. Because like she and her family are the last of her line. So then
Yeah, they're the only ones left.
and they're the only ones who, as we talked about, like the shield earlier, they're the only ones that can actually like use the shield. The shield will not work for any other bloodline but their bloodline.
So a lot of these bloodlines have their own kind of weapon that was gifted to the hero.
And it's called like
From the
Aegeus.
The shield is called an Aegis,
Aegis.
which is what was gifted to Perseus from Athena to help defeat Medusa.
And then Chimedes stole it.
Yes. But because they're a different bloodline, they can't use it. Like, they can't even pick it up, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
So like with the flashback, you learn that they have the
Yes.
shield, and you also learn like why they want to make a pact with the Perseus line.
yeah. They essentially propositioned her and
10-year-old.
Yes. When she's very, very young, and this man is 10 years her father's senior,
So like
wants
50
to
years
marry
her
her.
age. And you at least, at first, like they're trying to arrange a marriage, and you assume it's going to be with Bellin because that's his like
His
son.
son.
And then he's like,
No,
and
it's for
so
me.
like, you know, that's like normal. Like arranged marriages are like not unheard of. Like,
Right.
and then he's like, you misunderstand. I want to marry her for myself.
Yeah.
Excuse me? And then he's like, I would do all the proper things because like in
Yeah, I'll wait for her first blood. I'll wait for,
like 12
Sir.
to wed her
you're gross.
or what? Yeah. Like, no.
And the only reason is so that he can have someone in his
Bloodline.
control who can use the
The
shield.
shield. Yeah.
Because otherwise they can't use it.
And because you also learn about all these bloodlines and that they have like specific people who are only allowed to like, or like they like are basically arranged off in marriages just to keep the bloodline strong and so that they have like multiple descendants, because they also believe that only guys can take over and be like the Archeron.
Yeah,
and
the Archon, I think.
The Archon,
Yeah.
whatever. And like females can't do it. Like there's this one bloodline that had a female and they basically like annexed them and like nobody like
That was her bloodline.
yeah.
That was the Perseus bloodline.
So, which is why there's like only her family left.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all kind of falling apart.
Okay, so how does the pacing of the chapters contribute to the development of the story? Does the story feel fast-paced, slow, or does it shift between the two? And why might this be effective?
I feel like it just maintains intensity. I feel like it's very fast paced with very few moments where she's finally able to reflect, and then it slows down and you're able to kind of digest some information. But outside of those small windows, I feel like it's very fast paced. I mean, we're in a window of 7 days throughout this entire book.
Yeah.
So everything's happening very fast. Again, I just have to keep reading faster to like push the story forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fast pace, especially in like this type of book, is very effective because it keeps you wanting more. Like there's action
Yes.
around every corner. You're like, are they gonna make it? Like they have this whole goal thing that they're trying to like get to, you know, find this thing, and they find out the information and they're trying to find this person and something happens and they're trying to find this person, but are they gonna find them?
Right.
Like, so it keeps you very much engaged and keeps the story like moving.
Yes.
Versus like, you know, oh, they're gonna go find this person and la da 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 da. It's like in a field of flowers.
All right, let's start talking about character development a little bit. We've already described Lore and our opinions on her, but how have we seen her character evolve throughout this story so far?
Well, I think she kind of first started off being, I want to say kind of like selfish.
Yeah.
But she's like, and she even says like in one of her reflection times that she has that she like realized like when she was young, she was kind of mean. I forget the exact word that she used, but she was not nice to people.
I think she was reflecting on her and Van's relationship.
Yeah, but like she realized like she probably was in the wrong a lot of the time, but like when she was little, she didn't see it as wrong. But I think her character has like developed a lot because she used to want to be in this Aegon, and like it was all for the power and the glory and the Kleos. But then as like you read, like she's gotten out of it, and now she's like has like kind of put a foot back in the door, and she talks to Castor, and she's like, I don't know how to do this because like I have one foot in the door and one foot out, but I don't want to be back in.
Yeah.
So she like can kind of see like the corruption of this whole system.
Yeah, it's almost like the concept of the bloodlines hunting the gods. It's very cult-like. It's very brainwashy concepts. And she was very much in the thick of it, and she was good at it. But once she got out of it, her eyes were opened. And now that she's back in it, she's seeing even more of just like how was I so in this? Like she's having those kind of thoughts as well. And I think she struggles a lot with her confidence. And I think this is where her relationship with Athena is going to be very positive. Because there's been moments where it's almost like she's taken on like the motherly figure for Lore and is trying to like uplift her and encourage her and be like, you were so much more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
And it makes me really like Athena a little bit because I'm like, okay, girl's girl.
Yes.
Like,
I'm still not sold on her because I have conspiracy theories about her. But I do like that she like when she figured out how Lore and Miles were like tricking Hermes into like getting more information out of him, and she like was like,
she's with it.
that's my girl.
I like Athena right now, which is interesting.
Okay, so how does Lore's relationship with other characters shape her decisions?
That's a difficult question to answer. Because when she's with Miles, she just wants to protect him. That's where her instinct to be a caregiver and be protective really comes into play. With Athena, she is very brute and crude.
Yeah.
And that surprised Miles because Miles had never seen that side of her.
Yeah.
With Castor, I feel like she's almost embarrassed for the decisions that she's done and like what she has done with her life. Because she cares for him a lot, and she's so conflicted with him because she cared for him so much. She mourned him because she thought he was dead. And so all the anger and the confusion and the frustration is just building up into, I feel like she's almost unpredictable when it comes to Castor.
Yeah, I also think that there is like an overall theme of like her being a protector though, because you think about it, like she's trying to make sure Miles is okay and like not involved in this because he's unblooded, he doesn't have powers, he isn't trained, like doesn't know how to fight or any of that. Then Athena, she basically like kind of protects her entire life, like she binds her fate to her. And then with Castor, she's always protecting him, like telling him like you are enough, like you're stronger than you think you are. And she basically stops 2 assassination attempts on his life.
Yeah, she has also protected him 100%.
So I don't know, and I'm interested to see how that protector vibe moves forward in the book.
Yeah.
Because Miles does not want to be protected.
He doesn't.
He is so annoyed that they're like, you can't do this. And she's like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
You need to leave. I'm not going anywhere.
Which I love his sass.
Absolutely.
I have fallen in love with Miles' character.
Yes. Okay. I think him and Van.
Me too. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. They were so
snippy with each other that I think. And then when Miles, like, that's at the, what was the art museum called? The Frank?
Oh, I don't even remember.
And he's like, you don't know where that is? Like, you can't tell that's that place?
And he's just in the video.
Yes. And he's like, that's the museum that's been turned into a bowling alley and stuff now. And you can just see he's like, but also like trying not to like blush and smile. And I'm like, oh.
I am 100% full sending that relationship. I'm predicting that 100%.
Also, if Lauren Castor don't be in a relationship, I'm gonna cry too because
I'm not getting my hopes up because Predictions. I got predictions.
Yeah, but, I am one that will always root.
Root for the love and the happy ending.
Yes. But let me tell you, I read books that don't have it. I'm devastated. Devastated.
All right. How do the main antagonists affect the plot and the tension of the story? And what qualities are making them so compelling or threatening?
Oh my gosh. Wrath. First of all, you find out he's basically kind of responsible for her parents' murder.
Yeah.
Is that at least that's what we're assuming. We know it's the House of Chimedes and he's like the new god of Chimedes. So,
she says that he's the one that ordered it. He might not be the one who did
it, but he's for sure behind it.
Yeah.
And so you're going through this and like, you're like, he's looking for this thing. He's like killing all these gods. Why does he want all this power? And then you find out, you know what he's after? Her.
Yeah.
And so now you're just like, they like hacked the system, and because they don't know that he's like after her for sure, they just like see each other. They see each other at this like bank place, and like she like kind of freezes in terror because it's the first time she's come across him really since
she froze.
Everything happens, and so you're like, what's gonna happen? Because he has this power basically to like freeze you in terror and make your body like not
it like
work.
Immobilizes you.
Like your body can't function.
Which, what a power.
Yeah, crazy. Of course, it'd be Chimedes, like
right.
The person you wouldn't want that power with.
Correct.
And so I'm interested to see how it moves forward, because they find out they hack a system, and like you can see what they've like searched for, and like their whole like group, like the whole hunters of Chimedes, and the new one is Melora Perseus.
Yeah, find her.
And like there's all these places she's actually been to have like popped up on this map.
Yeah.
And then like there's obviously a bunch that are not her on there too. But so I'm interested to see how that plays out, like, because now he's looking for her, so that just adds like another whole layer to the development of the story. Because you also learn that she has somehow humiliated him, because she blames herself for her parents' murders because she humiliated him somehow, which we still have not found out how. But even Hermes alludes to that right before the end of part 2.
The Reveler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not Hermes, sorry, yeah. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Ison. Hermocles.
The Reveler.
How do you feel like it takes the story along?
I mean, that was pretty much it. Just, if he wasn't there, if he didn't have all of these layers to just what a crooked, corrupt person he was, because this is no one else in this millennia of time that the Agon has been happening. Everybody wants to keep all the powers in there. Nobody's wanted to end it. And now all of a sudden, his desire to be pretty much more powerful than Zeus is kind of what it feels like. He wants to take over everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. And I get frustrated with them because I'm just like, how could you do this to people? Like, and I understand there's evil in the world and like people actually think like that, but my brain just like is like, how can you be that mean or like
that horrible?
Yes. So next we're gonna do character interactions and relationships. Dun, dun, dun. How do you feel like the characters in these chapters define friendship or loyalty? How does the theme of betrayal come into play? And how does it impact the relationships presented so far?
With loyalty, that's been questioned a lot with the fact that Lore and Athena have binded their fates. Mm-hmm. And with Castor, he normally, within the bloodlines, the person who's considered to be the Archon is like the head of that bloodline. And that's the first person in line to kill a god and take their power. And like that's just, you're just serving that person. Castor was not the Archon. He wasn't even the son of the Archon or anything like that. And so him taking the power from Apollo, him killing the god, not being the Archon, everyone feels betrayed by him. Laura feels betrayed by him because she thought he was dead and she mourned him and he never came and found her. Keely's bloodline feels betrayed by him because he wasn't the Archon.
And because he was also born weak and they don't tolerate weakness.
Yeah, he was born with what, cancer?
Yeah, leukemia.
Leukemia. And it's like he was very, very sick, but still trained, still did all the things. He was just naturally weaker. And by the time that he actually supposedly killed Apollo, he was bedridden. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't know how he killed him. Nobody knows how he killed him. But he did because he got the power.
Yeah, and so he's trying to figure out the story. And he also talks about how, like, he was so weak to begin with, he couldn't even form, like, a corporeal form, which is supposed to be, like, so, like, new gods, when they form, basically kind of, like, live it up. They, like, start all these new businesses and all that, and he wasn't even strong enough to make a body.
Materialize a body. And so everyone just feels betrayed by him. I think even Van feels a little betrayed. I think he's confused on where to place his loyalty, because normally as a messenger, like, yes, you follow your kin and you follow your house. He was friends, though, with Castor. And he was kind of friends with Lore. They kind of had like almost like a love-hate relationship of just like teasing constantly. And we find out that Van was actually very jealous.
Which is weird because she was also jealous of him.
Yeah. It's always like the grass is greener on the other side.
But it really wasn't.
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing. And Athena feels betrayed by Lore because Lore brought Castor back.
And Castor killed Apollo, which was her brother.
And so she's mad about that, and she wants to kill him because anyone who is still an old god is mad at the god killers.
Yeah, and that's what they call him, is god killer.
There's just so many layers to the betrayal and trust aspect.
Well, and I'm also interested how Artemis plays in it, because Artemis, like, betrayed Athena by, like, basically gutting her as soon as the Aegon started, because Wrath was there, and she thought she was going to, like, die.
Yeah.
So
she stabbed Athena to try and just slow her down so that she could get away.
Right, but, like, that's kind of a big betrayal. You stabbed your sister and basically almost killed her.
She was very close to dead when she was on Laura's doorstep.
But they haven't come together since then, other than, like,
we see
Artemis trying to basically murder Castor twice. She comes into play twice. No, maybe just once. Was she at the bank? Or was that just Athena?
That was just Athena.
Okay. So Artemis, like, basically tries to assassinate Castor, but you haven't seen her yet. And Artemis and Athena have not met since Artemis basically... They haven't seen each other since Artemis gutted her.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see how that betrayal plays out, because I feel like that's a big... That's big.
It is. But also in the eyes of the gods, I don't think it is that big of a deal. She's not really concerned about her sister.
Yeah.
She's more of like, yeah, she'll pay for that. Bottom of my concerns.
Yeah.
Like, she understands that she did it to help herself get away. Not that she necessarily agrees, and she's not, like, happy about the situation. But, I don't know. All right, in what ways are our characters driven by duty versus personal desires?
And see, this is where I feel like Laura is very conflicted, because if she went by personal desires, I feel like she wouldn't be back in the Aegon. But she got talked into it because she's like, you owe it to your family to, like, get revenge or seek vengeance for them from Chimedes, because don't you want to get them back?
Right.
For basically killing your family. Like, because when she was growing up, like, she just wanted to, like, create a name for herself, because legends never die. And she's kind of stepped away from that, so she doesn't really feel duty bound to do this.
Yeah.
I feel like, until Athena, like, talks her into it. Mm-hmm. Like, Laura's personal desires is to, like,
be free.
Be free. That's what she wants most out of anything in the world, is she wants to be free. She doesn't want to be a part of these bloodlines and, like, have to do all the killing or be hunted, and because she normally tries to, like, hide whenever this Aegon comes around, like, for the 7 days. She doesn't want to be in the city at all, near anything. So I don't know. I feel like that plays a big role in, like, her decisions right now, because she's tied her fate now to Athena, so she's like now duty bound to kind of be a participant in this whole thing that's going on.
How do different characters react to power? Power is a big thing that's been motivating quite a few people in the story. How do they react to that power and the consequences of that?
I mean, it really just depends. Like, I mean, if you look at Castor's been weak his whole life, and he gets the power of Apollo, and he still feels weak because he's like, I can't control it. And he just doesn't feel like he's enough, because that's what everybody has told him his entire life is like, you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough. And even though he has all this power, like, he still doesn't believe in himself. And other people are like, you're weak. And I mean, if you're told you're weak like every day, all day, like, that's what you're going to believe about yourself. So I feel like you're never going to have control. Where then, like, Lore, who doesn't want power, sees that Castor has all this power and is trying to build him up. No, you are enough. Like, this is a new muscle. Like, just like anything else, you have to practice at it. Like, you weren't good at healing at first, but you've practiced. You were, like, studying healing kind of thing. And then you look at people like Wrath, who that's all they want. Like, they're consumed by ways to get more power. Like, how can I be more powerful? Or even, like, Athena, when she's, like, talking about, like, oh, you didn't have, like, your people do all this. Like, I would have done this to have them bow down to me. Because that's how this whole thing started, was they wanted more power. They wanted people to bow down to them. And now they're not getting that. And it's very interesting to see, like, the Reveler, he kind of, like, destroyed his whole bloodline, which you're not supposed to do. Because he just, like, he doesn't want... Like, he doesn't really do anything with his power. It doesn't seem like he kind of wants it. Like, he just wants to live his life. Some people are consumed by it, and others are just like, no, thank you. I want out.
Mm-hmm. What role have familial relationships been playing in shaping the characters' motivations? Are there any significant dynamics surrounding family?
I mean, with Laura, obviously her family was murdered, so I feel like for her... Like, she's now trying to protect who she considers her family, which I think for sure is Miles.
Oh, yeah.
And now that Castor's back, I feel like it's also Castor. Like, for a while it was Gil. Like, Gil turned into her family, and she has struggled to, like, kind of move past his death. So I think it just influences their decisions because, you know, she originally didn't want to bring Castor into it because she knew, like, Athena was going to try to kill him the second he walked through the door. So she's trying to, like, protect him. Like, she just got him back.
Yeah, because she didn't know that he was a god until she broke into their house.
Yeah, so she had already binded her fate to Athena by the time she found out that Castor was, like, they had this game of hide and seek, so she thought he was, like, asking her to come play hide and seek and, like, meet in the spot, and then, like, she, like, breaks in and basically finds out that he's the new god, and it's like, oh my god, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I thought he could help me with this, but now, like, obviously he had to kill Apollo to do this. I need him to help me heal Athena, but, like, Athena's gonna try to kill him. And it's very indecisive because I think she, like, feels like Castor is part of her family, because in the flashback they're partnered up from, like, day one of their training, and basically they get the crap beat out of them day one.
Yes. Oh my god.
And they kind of, like, lift each other up and, like, keep each other accountable for I don't even know how many years, like, she was training, because it hasn't really said. And, you know, she mourned him because he was, like, one of her people, and she thought he was dead, and now he's back, and she doesn't know, like, I feel like how to feel. And it's, like, very much influencing her decisions, because normally she would have, like, run out of the room right away, like, made a snap decision. But because it was Castor, she's like, do I bring him? Do I not? Do I bring him? Do I not? And Van knows that she's not going to leave him behind. And it's, like, playing off that. And he knows that Castor isn't going to, like, let anything happen to her. So I feel like it kind of, like, very much influences how people are making decisions currently. And, like, Miles doesn't want to be left out, because this is Miles' family, too. He doesn't have a family. He was living on the streets, and, like, Gil invited him to live with them. And, like, him and Lore have, like, grown really close. And now, like, Laura's trying to protect him by sending him away. He's like, absolutely not. Like, I'm going to be here for you this whole time. Like, I'm going to help. So I feel like it's very prevalent in, like, their decision making.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's talk about some themes and all of the connections that we're going to be seeing.
Obviously, this book is built around the concept of Greek mythology. So, how is the author able to weave classical mythology into a modern context, and how does this emerge early on in the book?
What I am noticing is just the relationships between the gods themselves, of who has been making pacts with each other while everyone was, for all the ones who were still alive. Obviously, Athena and Artemis being together. Athena and Hermes were tight. Hermes, very flamboyant, very vivacious. So I'm not surprised at all that he had picked up a lover, because that is very on point with his character. And also the concept of this is not the first time that there have been conflicts within the house of the gods. Mm-hmm. They are always fighting each other. There's always battles going on and consequences for certain actions. I find it interesting that this was Zeus's response to it. And there was a part that I found interesting, because all of the hunters are thinking that Zeus is punishing them for the way that the gods killed humans in their quest for power. Athena corrected Lore when she was talking about that. She's like, that's lost. You are not on the right page with that. Mm-hmm. Because he is punishing us because of the way that we threatened each other's place. Like, they only care about what happens up there. They don't actually care about humans. And I also admire the way that the author was able to bring in the weapons, like the Aegis, and having that have such a profound symbol. I think she did a really nice job of connecting the two worlds and making it cohesive, because it doesn't really feel out of place. Like, yes, the Greek part is completely hidden. It's supposed to be normal society. No one really notices these families, these houses, these bloodlines.
And if they do, they're typically paid off not to.
Yes. So it's almost believable that this could be real, that this could
kind of
be
like
happening.
I in my head imagine mobs, like the mob scene, like the mob life.
Yes.
Like they're all like crime lords or like mob bosses.
That's essentially how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because it takes place in New York, so that's what my brain just like, these are mobs. Okay, so vengeance is a key theme in the book. What role does vengeance seem to play in motivating all the characters, and how does it shape their personal journeys or relationships?
Well, vengeance plays a big role for a lot of people, but mostly for Lore. That's what Athena was able to use to convince her to get back into the Agon, because she's trying to avenge her family and get vengeance for Wrath having killed her entire family. And he's the reason why her whole life got flipped upside down. There is a connection to honor with the vengeance, and I think that's the honor part is more where Athena is at, but it's the vengeance that's pulling Lore back in. Mm-hmm. Well, the Reveler doesn't feel like to me that he wants vengeance. Like, he's...
Even though Hermes was killed?
Yeah. I feel like he's just, like, done. He's like, I am done with it. I am over this. And that surprises me, because I feel like even Athena wants vengeance. Mm-hmm. She's like, what do you mean Hermes is dead?
Yes, but then part of me is also like, are you working with Wrath? Because his goal, his objective... Sorry, this is jumping ahead to predictions.
Oh, man, I know where you're going with this, too.
But he literally said his job with the Wrath was to find Lore.
Yeah.
And the chapter ends with him saying, and I found you.
Yeah.
Or it might not have said, like, that exact words, but it says, I did find you, you know. My one job for Wrath was to find you. He thinks you have the Aegis, and he's going to do just about anything to get it. And then they, like, say some more, and then he goes, I did find you, you know. But he also does say that it was a total fluke, because in the end he was looking for him, meaning Hermes. And and Hermes had found her first.
Yeah. And I also wonder, we don't really get too much insight into what Castor's thinking. But with everything that he grew up with, all the illness, all the mistreatment, and now that he's a god, and he doesn't really have a ton of support... Mm-hmm. I wonder what his feelings are.
Yeah, I'm hoping that kind of throughout the book we get a little bit more insight into his. One thing I do appreciate about the book, though, is I very much like that it's one POV. Not that I don't love like multiple POVs, because I am all about it, especially if it's a romance. Ugh, you better believe I want both sides of the story.
Yes.
But I very much appreciate that it's just like Laura's point of view, because I think with how much that is already going on,
It'd be a
too
lot.
much.
Yeah.
And things would kind of like get overlapped too much, where you're like,
I could see that. For sure.
but I also, part of me also then wants a POV with Castor just to see how he feels about Laura. And I want one on Van to see how he feels about Miles, and one on Miles to want the POVs for the romance part, even though there's not really any romance in this book. So, you know, if we could write those and just send them to me, that'd be great. Okay, so how does the theme of identity evolve in the first half of this novel? Consider Laura and other characters and their struggles, or with the how they embrace their roles.
Well, I definitely think Castor is one that's struggling with his identity hugely, because, like we've been talking about, he's been so weak, and now he's a god who's supposed to have all this power and strength and is supposed to be able to lead his people. Mm-hmm. And he had such a hard time. He didn't want to leave his people when they were being attacked by the Cadmedes, because he's supposed to be there to protect them, but he can't.
And if he stayed, he probably would die.
He probably would have died.
Then they would have been protected anyways.
Yeah. So he's definitely struggling with who he's supposed to be now that he's a god.
Yeah.
And I think that Van is also struggling as well, because I don't feel like he likes his role very much. I don't know how you feel about him.
He also feels trapped. He wants out. Like, he made the quote of, like, you know, some of us, we look outside of our prison bars so often and so much that we don't see the bars anymore. And he's like, but this is like one prison I've chosen to stay in because I dream of being free.
When he confessed to Lore that he was jealous of her, part of that reasoning was because he said that Lore always seemed to know what she wanted.
Mm-hmm. And she went after it with everything she had. And it didn't matter if she fell, she got right back up. And he has never wanted to be a fighter. Like, he always regretted, like, he didn't want to train, he didn't want to do any of this, and that he, like, couldn't embrace himself with, like, everything he had. Part of it, I think, is his parents.
Yeah.
Like, specifically his dad.
Right.
But you don't really learn about much, so.
Mm-mm. At least to this point, we haven't. So he's definitely struggling.
And then I also think Laura is, too. Like, if you think about, like, Athena talks to her a lot about, like, you need to embrace your identity. Like, you have stepped away from who you are. Like, you need to, like, step into your destiny, into your fate. And she's like, I don't believe in fate. Like, I don't believe in the fates anymore. I believe in what I choose. So I think that's going to be a big, at least personally, I think that's going to be a big thing that she's going to have to step into before this book is over. And she's going to have to embrace
has to commit
who
either
she
way,
is.
because there's not going to be a real conclusion to this book if there is no decision being made with the 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Right. And I mean, I still think she could step out embracing her full self. I think she's just so stuck in the middle of, like, who she is and who she's supposed to be and all of this that it doesn't work. I mean, she can still embrace being Melora Perseus and not be a part of the Aegon.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more to her story, and before it's over, she's going to have to, like, either be fully committed to being in or fully committed to being out.
And I do still think, even with Miles, that there is just...
I feel like there's something hidden with there.
There's something that we don't know with him.
Because okay, first of all, she told him basically everything, and if someone told me, like, they're basically, like, part of a god's bloodline, and they're the last of their kind, and there's all these people that are going to be, like, trying to murder me, and, oh, hey, look, by the way, there's also a god in our house currently. And he's just like, okay, cool. I'm sorry. Like, first of all, I'm going to feel very betrayed that you didn't tell me, which also then
he kind of was.
Yeah, but then logically I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Duh, why would you tell me? Then he just kind of is, like, nonchalant about it, and, like, oh yeah, like, it almost feels like he knew everything already, because he doesn't really ask a lot of questions. He doesn't, like, it just seems, it's very suspicious to me.
Well, and the way that he just so casually is able to put himself in the situations and kind of blend in, he is considered non-blooded. And, like, people know that. When he went and interacted with the different house, they knew that he was non-blooded. But even when they're in their conversation with the Reveler and he started asking questions, he was
antagonizing him.
Yes.
So he would say more.
Without having to use up one of their questions.
That almost feels like Herm's bloodline because he's a trickster.
I know.
So that's why I'm like, did you not react really because you knew all of this information already?
I just don't know with Miles. I hope there's something.
Yeah.
There has to be
if
something.
not, and if there's not, then he is a fantastic friend and everybody should have a Miles in their life.
Period. All right. In what ways, let's talk about honor and legacy. How are these two themes playing into people's decisions?
So basically, it's kind of like everything that each bloodline is searching for, or each person is searching for. Like, they want to have honor, and they get honor by, like, you know, doing all these, like, being a hunter and doing all this. And, like, what can they do to, like, continue their bloodline? And, like, the legacy part, especially, that's what Lore wants. At least in the beginning, is what she was, like, dreaming of because, as we said, legends never die.
Yeah. Well, and she has that phrase that she keeps saying that my name will be legend.
Yeah. Basically, so, like, your name isn't forgotten. So you may pass away, but, like, your deeds and what you have done continue on.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, that's, like, her big motivation. That's why she wants to learn how to fight like her parents did. That's why she, like, is upset, like, when she first learned she, like, isn't allowed to train, which I think then leads her dad into, like, making a deal to get her to train. And it kind of is, like, the driving force. And I'm wondering if that's also the driving force behind, like, whatever she did to humiliate Wrath. And then now she's, like, dealing with the consequences of that and realizing, like, that's not, like, the life she wanted or she wants.
Yeah.
Like, it's different than what she assumed it would be like. Okay, so what ethical questions are raised about justice and retribution in this world? How do characters justify their actions when pursuing revenge or justice?
When they're doing things surrounding the Agon, they are very much so ignoring all of the customs and laws of modern day.
Oh, yeah, like when they walked into the museum.
Yeah. Ethics out the window.
Yeah. And they even thought it was the Reveler at first because, like, this is, like, where they thought the Reveler would be. Mm-hmm. And they find, like,
all these
7
dead
people
bodies.
are, like, murdered or whatever. And then they're, like, the Reveler was talking about something about with ethics. And they're like, how could you even say that when you did that to the people upstairs? He's like,
yeah.
What do you mean? I didn't do anything to people upstairs. Like, I didn't know there were people upstairs.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I heard a commotion. I hid in a box until it was quiet.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to me to see, like, how in these 7 days, like, I mean, they pay off cops and stuff and they hide the bodies. And, like, there's, like, at least so far from what we've read, there's no reason that these people should have died. And there's, like, no reason, like, a lot of people should have died. Or, like, when Chimedes were taking over the Achilles building and there's all this gunfire and stuff and no cops and stuff showed up. It's just, like, a show of brutal force. And it's just, I don't know, it's weird because there's no, like, sense of what's right and what's wrong.
It's just its own existence. It's like its own bubble.
Yeah, like, what can I do to better myself?
Yeah, which betters my line, which is, like, honor and power and legacy. But we're going to ignore all the ethical issues.
Yeah. So I can take it by any means.
But there's some ethics because being a kin killer is, like, a huge sin, essentially.
Which is basically, like, if you're, like, the Archon trying to kill the god of their own line.
Yes. If you kill someone within your own line, you are a kin killer, and that is punishable by death.
There's, like, a curse put upon you or something.
Something like that. But the Archon thought that by being a kin killer, which is a huge no-no, that it would bring more honor to his house.
Because basically that he was trying to kill Castor and he thought Castor was weak and that he didn't deserve this role. Yeah. But also then that's, like, your own perspective. Like,
true.
Because nobody knows how Apollo was killed. Castor doesn't even know how Apollo was killed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there has to be a bigger role behind this.
Yes.
That we're just not seeing yet.
I agree, for sure. So many ethical questions.
How does the theme of survival become a central theme in these chapters?
It just feels like they're always on the run. They're still so many steps behind. And they're just trying to play catch up while also trying to keep themselves alive. And they are building their group. They're building their posse, which is good in some sense because it's building their connections, but it's also making them such a bigger target as well.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like the Hunger Games.
I've never seen the Hunger Games.
I'm internally crying. But basically, there's like 24 kids, and it's like they're all trying to murder each other because they're, there's like a treaty. They rebelled against the capital. They kind of like rebelled against their dad.
Okay.
Kind of thing, and now they're trying to kill each other for more power. And basically, if you win the Hunger Games, and you have like all the riches and stuff you could ever dream of. But not even just that part, but like they like form up alliances, which is kind of like what's happening now. But so that part like reminds me of the Hunger Games, where they're like trying to team up, and the whole theme of it is survival, like trying to survive to the end. And since the Aegon is like, it can only end when there's one reborn, that's where I was like getting my like, it reminds me of the Hunger Games. But basically, I mean, that's the whole premises of kind of the story, is to survive. Like, you have to survive these 7 days or you're like dead.
It's done. Yeah.
Like, okay,
well,
so,
and she gets mad at Castor because she's telling him, you have to survive.
yeah.
And there were several instances where he was very much threatened and he just froze.
Because he feels like he's not worthy. So then he's like,
he's almost like, please kill me so I don't have to deal with this.
My bloodline or whatever would be better off if I wasn't here and if someone stronger was. I very much understand how he's thinking. But then also, like, in a book perspective, I'm like, but those are the people who make, like, the best leaders. Because they're constantly feeling like they're not doing enough for their people. And not, like, I'm not doing enough to get glory for myself. Like, I want my, like, family to survive. I want my bloodline to survive. I really hope he does grow into his role, because I feel like he'll make a great leader in that way, because he'll be constantly concerned about others and if he's doing enough for them than for himself.
Yeah.
All right. So in what ways do the characters wrestle with the idea of sacrifice? How is the concept of sacrificing for the greater good versus personal gain explored? I feel like we haven't seen a ton of this yet. Like, I know Castor struggles with it because he, like, feels like he should kind of sacrifice himself for the greater good of his, like, bloodline. But really, I feel like that's, like, the easy way out. And not, like, it's just more because he doesn't feel like he's enough, so he should sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Laura's kind of sacrificing her own personal desires.
Yeah.
In a way, for the greater good, because she wanted nothing to do with the Aegon. But to help Athena, to help Castor, to help the world, she's putting herself back into the one place she didn't want to be. So that in and of itself is close to a sacrifice.
Yeah. I'm hoping, like, that plays more of a role as we, like, read further into the book. Because there hasn't been a ton. There's been some, but I feel like to make it ideal, there will be a theme of something has to be sacrificed.
Yes.
Because
bind
your fate to mine.
That's where I'm getting the idea of maybe this isn't going to be such a happy ending, because something has to give. We'll get into that. I can't wait. I can't wait for that.
On the topic of sacrifice, how does the Aegon itself demand sacrifices from its participants? And what does this suggest about the nature of the world the characters inhabit?
If you're a hunter, you have to put everything above yourself, and you will sacrifice yourself for your god or your archon or whatever for the sole purpose of your bloodline surviving. And that's not in the normal world. That's not. So it's interesting, the power dynamics involved. If you're a part of that bloodline, like, there's no out. There's no way out. You have to be involved in some way, shape, or form, because it's just your duty. It's your responsibility to the Aegon.
Because they have, like, other jobs outside of just hunters, but, like, everybody trains, and then, other people have to go to be, like, healers, to be this, so you're kind of just, like, you're stuck in it.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever pick up, it was mentioned a few times early on, but I haven't noticed it recently. But her necklace.
Yes, okay, because I wanted to know if that was like a symbol of protection. And then because when it got broken off, that's all of a sudden when Castor showed up. Like, she has worn that necklace every day for however many years. It breaks during the fight, and then Castor's there.
No one was able to find her. And she's been wearing that feather.
Mm-hmm.
And Gil gave her that feather.
And, yeah. And if we think Gil is Hermes, it's like a way of protecting.
Oh my god.
Don't know if that's actually like gonna be part of it or not, but in my head
There's
is just
something.
That's just kind of what happened. Like this
they put
necklace.
way too much emphasis on the necklace for it to not
Yeah.
be something.
Like the necklace broke, Gale finds her. Or not Gale finds her,
Castor.
but Castor finds her. So I don't know. That's just like, that was my theory going into it. But then it hasn't been mentioned in a while. Miles is going to try to fix this necklace for her.
Yeah.
But since then we haven't heard about it. So like,
I know. Let's talk about fear. Let's get into the personal and psychological journeys that some of our characters are facing. How does fear and courage play out in the decisions that are being made by these characters?
well, I know with Lore, sometimes her fear takes over. Because that's when she has her panic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Typically. That's
It's
when
very crippling for her.
I don't really know how that's going to play out for her in the long run, because obviously you can't be crippled by fear if you're like trying to take down Wrath, because it just, like they said in the book, your terror and your fear, he feeds off of it.
Yeah.
It makes him stronger.
Yeah.
So she's going to have to find a way to face her fears and like change her like thought process around them and not let them.
Which I think comes from her level of courage. Her doubt of her being worth anything.
Yeah.
Because she also has those.
Because she grew up poor. She
conflicts.
grew up in poverty. She grew like, she was laughed at because she had to join, like her family is basically like laughed upon and frowned upon because they're the last of their kind. They're not rich. They're not like any of these things that the bloodlines like think mean you're a
mean
powerful
something.
blood. Yeah.
Well, and that's also when we see Athena building her up.
Yeah.
Trying to build up her confidence. There was a quote that I really liked. I made a note of it from Athena. Oh, also Athena's compassion. But it was your fear will feed him, Athena told her. It will bring him pleasure. Do not grant it. He is as mortal as you these next 6 days. If you falter again, remember what he took from you. He may possess power, but you have righteousness. And should even that abandon you, remember that I am beside you and I will not let you fail. Like, she is just doing everything she can to empower Lore and build that confidence. I really loved that part because Athena is the goddess of war and wisdom. She's brutal, she's brusque, she is a fighter to no end, but she's also very wise. I mean, that's part of what she has, and she sees right through Lore. She sees through the lies, she sees through like people's pure intentions, and she sees the righteousness in Lore, but Lore doesn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel like she has that within her. And Athena's just trying to get her to embrace it, almost.
Well, and I think, too, like, the fear and courage are going to play out a lot in Castor's life, because he basically has, like, a fear of failing, and that's all he's done so far. They try to set a trap or not really a trap, it didn't really work to trap Wrath, but they try to beat Wrath to, like, the O1. I don't know how to say their names.
The Odysseus line.
Yeah. Basically, they're, like, under attack, and he, like, bursts out his power. He can't control it, and then he thinks he harms Lore, and he's like, I wasn't good enough. Like, I couldn't control it. It just burst out of me. Like, I'm a failure, and that's kind of, like, his fear is not being enough. And I think, like, he's going to have to find a way to overcome that, too, before the end, or they are going to fail in their, like, mission.
I think it is finally time where we can finally get into some of these predictions that we have been holding on to this entire time, that we've been wanting to dive into and discuss. Based on the major conflicts so far, we'll start with this. What do you think is going to be the next significant challenge? What's the next blockade or barrier that we're going to see Lore having to combat?
I feel like it's going to be something to do with whatever the Reveler is telling her. Like, she's the key to it all. So if she doesn't come to terms with her being a significant role in this, my predictions is she is going to have like a significant role in how the Aegon ends. Because even Athena was like, was it Athena? I think it was Athena was saying like, no, it was Castor. Castor said, he's like, I always saw you as a player in the Aegon, not as like killer of a god, but as the one to destroy it.
I think, and I had to think on this for quite a while to come up with something, because I mean, we don't know, right? We don't know what's coming next. We just found out the Aegis. The entire time, we knew that the Cadmedes had stole it from the Perseus house.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know until just recently.
Is that Laura has it?
I don't know if she has it, but she took it.
Right.
She
I think
took
that's
it.
how she humiliated the Cadmedes.
Yes.
Because they talked about how like all the Cadmedes know what happened, but no one will talk about it because it's so humiliating for Wrath. So I think when she was 10 is that she probably snuck in, stole it, and then I think that's why her family was murdered.
I think so too.
Because she blames herself.
100%.
So, and I'm assuming she hid it somewhere because she's like, nobody but me knows where it is.
Yeah. Everyone in her alliance, Castor, Athena, Van, Miles, she has convinced them all. Now, she has not said it specifically, but she has all let them believe that Wrath has it. Mm-hmm. And she's let Athena believe, yeah, you go kill him. You go, sure, it'll be there. And then it's not going to be there. And she can play dumb. But I don't think she's going to be able to play dumb. I don't think she's going to be able to sit here and continue. She's lying. She's currently lying. And I think that is going to be something that's going to come to light very, very soon. And that's going to be a huge impact on the, I guess, morality of the group who's trying to end this Aegon.
I'm very interested to see what happens with her figuring out who Hermes was. Because he says, you know where he was those few years he disappeared. You know, because he was with you. That's freaking how it ends.
I know. How do you think the dynamics between lore and the gods in general are going to change or evolve throughout these next few sections?
I feel like there's going to be some more conflict in her group because of
this Aegis.
Yes. And because of the lies she's telling, which I understand the lies because she also thinks Athena is partially in this for the wrong reasons, because even the Reveler kind of hints to that, saying like she's always thinking like 10 steps ahead. Like, you might think she's here with you, but she's way up here.
Yeah. And
like she's planned for this. Like, she knows, like, because she's the god of war and wisdom, so obviously she has to have contingency plans. She has to have all this. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, because does Athena know that Lore has it? Like, is that one of the reasons why she like went to her when she was injured? Castor, I feel like, is just going to be hurt by her keeping information from him.
I agree. Castor's going to be hurt. I think this is going to cause a big rift in their relationship. But I don't think Athena knows that the Cadmedes don't have it. She seems to buy into that idea. But she definitely saw out lore. She probably knew it had something to do with the Aegis. Mm-hmm. And she's the only one left alive who can use it.
Yeah. And they think the rest of the poem is written on there.
Yes.
And then she's also like, then Athena is very offended by this, because she's like, how could your bloodline destroy or like
lose it?
But also like she feels like it's like I don't know, like I forget how she words it, but basically like cheapen the idea of the Aegis by like inscribing on it.
Yes.
Comes in, and whether like this whole like back half of the poem is like a myth or if it's actually real.
And she's conflicted with this because she's seen it, she's used it before it was stolen, and she's inspected it. She knows, she doesn't remember ever seeing anything on there, but we're alluded to the idea that it's somehow hidden on this shield.
And I wonder if it'll have to be like, you know, she has to be willing to like sacrifice something or like give up something to like, or be all in to be able to see it.
What do you think the next turning point in the plot will be? And what clues or foreshadowing are hinting to this?
Oh, I have no idea, but I feel like,
I'm just screaming Hermes.
yeah,
Hermes.
yes, but then we know he's been killed.
Yes.
That's just in my head. I think Miles has his power.
You think Miles? Wait. Hey, wait.
I think Gil invited Miles to live with him, and if we think Gil is Hermes, then he had those 3 years to like build a relationship. Like he offered him his bedroom, and like helped him, you know. And if Hermes wanted out, because we don't know if he for sure died by like getting hit by a car, because if he's actually immortal, that's not going to kill an immortal,
Because
right?
they can take on any form.
Right. And like the only times they can be killed is when the Aegis or whatever is happening. So I don't know if like they found a way to like pass power or whatever, or if he just killed him and like his power is gone, which could be too. But it would just make my heart happy that like Miles has something and he's not just an unblooded. I just feel like, because like the Reveler just doesn't feel like he lost his like partner.
But Miles is with them.
Right, but okay, but here's the thing. Here's what I think too, is like obviously they think, the Reveler thinks that Hermes left something for him to find.
Yeah, he's searching for it.
He's searching for it. What if it's the feather? Because she was gifted to it by Gil. And if Hermes is Gil, like what if it's something like that? Or what if like Gil told Miles, because Miles is trying, you know, he's just like sitting there getting like more information out of him. There's so much thought process around all of this. Like,
all right, let's speculate a little bit. I'm going to skip ahead. What do you think the ultimate resolution of the Agon is going to be? Do you think someone is going to emerge as the clear victor, or is there going to be something way more complex going on in the end?
I think it's going to be something way more complex to be going on, but also I think it's going to be lore. Like, if you go back to her dream that she had of her, like, holding this shield against whatever, I think that's, like, her and Chimedes battling. I forget exactly where she talks about her dream, because she hasn't told anybody about her dream that she had beforehand. And this is right after she was told that she like wouldn't be able to study with him for the first, but then finds out like she can. And she'd fallen into a deep sleep, and there her fate had come to her shimmering. Dreams were messages from Zeus. It was important she remembered everything. She saw the edge of a shield held firm in front of her, repelling the darkness. A wing made of golden light, bright eyes reflected in the blade of a sword. She had kept the dream to herself. Now it seems the fates were ready for her. And you know what her necklace was?
A feather.
And a blade of a sword, bright eyes. I don't remember exactly how she described Castor's eyes, but I know they had like sparks of power.
Yes, she could see the power in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with you that there has to be some kind of complex ending. I don't see there being one clear victor, because if we go back to the actual poem that we have of what Zeus said to kind of initiate the Agon, he said that it would happen until there is one who remains, who will be remade whole. If one has to remain, if there has to be one god, okay, kill Wrath, obviously. That's step one. Mm-hmm. But you now have Athena, who she is bound to, at least until the end of the Agon. But through the end of the Agon, she is bound to Athena. Mm-hmm. And then Castor is a god.
Okay, but I also take it as, like, it just doesn't have to be one. There's just one person who remains whole. Like, not corrupted.
So morally, as opposed to just physicality.
Mm-hmm. I think it could go either way. And like, I feel like, I mean, Castor, I feel like is kind of corrupted, not by the influence of power, but by his like inability, like not his inability. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. Like
the doubting.
Yeah. So he's not like, and I obviously like, we know like Athena and Artemis and all of them were like kind of corrupted by power, it seems, with like things they wanted like the humans and stuff to do.
So is the way of being an old god.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how I take it. Not just like one person having to be left.
I'm curious what Artemis's role is going to play, because she
Yeah, 'cause
made the one presence, and then that was it. And she hasn't done anything else.
No. Besides stabbing her sister and trying to kill Castor.
Yeah.
So.
But something has to happen with that, too.
Oh, and I wonder. Okay, here. Because you know what chapter 3 is called? Deathless.
Yes.
I will reward you with the mantle and the deathless power of the god whose blood stains your bold blade. And remember, the dream talked about a blade.
Deathless power.
Of the god whose blood stains your bold blade. For this chance I ask much. Gather at the navel of the known world and begin your hunt when the day is born. So it shall be until the final day when one remains who is remade whole. And okay, part of me wants to be remade whole to be Castor, because he's been sick his entire life. He feels like he doesn't have like the power, like he's not strong enough to hold, like, and control this power. So if he was remade whole, not as a god, but as a human to live with Lore.
Oh.
That's what I want, because I want the happy ending.
Well, and see, I almost thought one of my predictions was Lore would have to sacrifice herself and end herself, which would simultaneously kill Athena after they've already killed Wrath. It would be easy to probably kill Artemis and the Reveler and any other remaining gods. Not to mention, Wrath is taking care of them anyway.
Yeah.
And then that just leaves Castor, who can then be remade whole. But he'd be by himself.
Right. Which that would be much of life for Castor.
Like, that would be the most extreme case of sacrifice that Lore would have to make. I don't foresee that being what will happen.
Mm-hmm. But it could happen.
Okay. I definitely do predict the Agon ending, though. I see that ending.
Yeah, especially because this is just a one-book series.
Yeah. There's no, like, continuation. There's no...
Yeah.
What happens at the end of this book is just done. And so I definitely see it ending. I don't see it continuing on in any other way. What do you think the final message is going to be? Despite whether the Agon ends, despite how and if it ends, who is still left, what kind of theme do you think, or message, that the author is trying to give their readers? I feel like it has to be with the internal conflict. How do you handle trauma? How do you handle conflict? How do you handle your self-doubts and your self-worth in your life?
Like your resiliency.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a big
and surrounding yourself with people who believe in you.
Yes. That's been a big thing that Lore's doing.
Yeah. Because without Castor, she, or Miles, or even Gil, when she like had her panic attack, she would be like probably still stuck in them.
Yeah, just spiraling.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like pushing forward, and Castor thinking he's not enough, and Lore constantly pouring into him. Like, you've always been the strongest person I've ever met. Not because like you like won all these battles and everything, but because when you got knocked down, you got up and you kept fighting.
It's the mentality, though.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing for especially like people today, because it seems like a lot when people get knocked down, they just give up because it's too hard to get back up, or like, you know, they don't think it's worth it to keep fighting, where in reality, like, that's what makes you better. That's what makes you stronger. That's what makes the whole journey worth it.
Yeah. This is also what makes me think that the ending has to be a positive one, because if that's the message that the author wants us to take from Lore, is that you can get through, like, you can get through all of it. Like, she obviously has to stay alive. Like, she has to win to some degree, is what that's leading me to. All right. As our time comes to a close, is there anything else that we would like to discuss as we wrap up our podcast?
I feel like we've kind of covered it all.
I feel like we covered everything. We've been talking for a hot minute. But we covered pretty much everything there was to cover in this whole first half.
Yeah.
So we talked about parts 1 and 2. There's 5 total parts. So there's 3 more left, but they're kind of smaller parts.
Yeah, these were the 2 longest parts.
Yeah. But they had, I mean, it makes sense because they had to build up the world. It had to create the situations to get us immersed. So the next time on our next podcast, it will be focusing on the last half of the book, kind of summarizing the main events and what's going on with that. And then we'll also talk about what book we'll read next, so that if you want to follow along with us and read with us and just ride on the trail with us.
Ride the roller coaster of reading.
Yes, you will be able to do that. We'll give you all the information you need for that. But we are so appreciative of you listening in.
And next time we won't be so awkward. Maybe. That's my whole personality, so I probably still will be.
We do have to get used to this. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this.
You know, since we're both teachers, I'm very comfortable. I could get up in front of my classroom all day and do whatever. I'll do a stupid dance, whatever. But then, like, talking on a microphone to nobody. It's like...
There is a video of us. We'll have videos on YouTube of our podcast, so you can see us. And then we'll also have this on Spotify. So whatever format you're listening to this on. Either way, thank you to all of our listeners. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify. We'll link all of the things, so you can listen to our next episode that will see us wrapping up the book. Thank you for following us as we navigate through the tension and suspense in modern day New York City.
Yes.
And the Agon. And we hope you appreciate our narratives and thoughts on Lore and her internal conflicts as we see her grow and develop as a character.
Thank you.
Thank you.